Matthew Bird, Lewes District Council.
Hello everyone, thank you for inviting me along. It's actually not the first time I've shared a stage with Zedify Bikes. I actually took part in a really strange bike competition called Battle Royale in Brighton a few years ago, where I came up against Zedify and cargo bikes. So it's nice to see Sam and hear about the scheme. Before I start, it's really interesting hearing the presentations this morning. Like many others in the room, I've had the scars from quite a long time working in sustainability and energy climate sector. And I think just on reflection, I think one thing Ollie said earlier around listed buildings, conservation areas and solar panels on roofs, I think that's a really, really key thing. I think there's a few issues like that it's slightly depressing in one way that sort of 20 years later, we're still having the same conversations. So it would be really good if the minds in this room can get together and maybe overcome some of those challenges. Certainly in Lewes, it's something that I, as a cabinet councillor, get asked a lot. And then I think the other thing is having worked with on the various schemes around retrofitting over the years that have come and gone, you know, what has happened is that you've had an insulation sector, for instance, that has come up to speed and then disappeared as those financial mechanisms have gone. So it's really heartening on the one hand to hear that talking about training and skills and getting together, because that's really what we need. So sorry about that, I just felt I had to say that. So we're at completely the other end to Zedify. We're a new project, e-cargo bike project in Lewes District. It weirdly came out of a conversation I had here with Avesco just before the pandemic struck, an event here a few years ago. So this scheme was kind of born in Eastbourne, weirdly. And the idea of, I've always been into electric bikes and e-cargo bikes and have followed Zedify's rise. And Lewes, if you know it well, has got many hills, and electric bikes for some people have been a game changer. But also the other thing it's got apart from hills is a lot of traffic and a lot of congestion. And as has been mentioned, what we're seeing, especially during lockdown, is the rise of the delivery vehicle. And it's in some areas, it's a bit of a blight on the streets. We have an air quality management zone in Lewes Town and in New Haven. And having had lots of conversations with local groups like Cycle Lewes, Cycle Sea Haven, the idea of the role that cargo bikes could play, you know, was discussed. So this scheme, our project, is very community based. So we didn't really want to just have a logistics delivery scheme. We really wanted to look at the potential for e-cargo bikes to actually counter some of the congestion issues, to move that community wealth agenda. We have a really big community wealth agenda in Lewes, to support our independent traders and our local businesses. So and then the other thing as well, as has been mentioned by Sam, is just the emissions reduction side of cargo bikes, and that everybody that rides an e-cargo bike sort of walks away with a smile on their face. It's brilliant in terms of health and well-being. And I suppose the other side of it, in terms of engagement, was to really, try and tackle some of those infrastructure issues that we have in Lewes with cycle paths. We have been banging our heads against the wall a little bit in terms of trying to get cycle-friendly infrastructure, and we thought with cargo bikes, they are so visible, they take up a place on the road. Cars actually give you quite a lot of space, and that could really help to kind of set that marker for more infrastructure and to engage people in those arguments. and discussions. Next slide, please. So what our scheme is, it's a delivery service, but it's kind of quite small in scope of deliveries. So we're working with a few local traders. We're working with a local brewery, Abyss Brewery. We're working with the farmers markets. So it's all about fixed deliveries so that we can actually be able to plan better. And then really importantly, in terms of the sort of engagement side, it's a try before you buy scheme. So if you're an electrician, sole trader, you are able to hire one of the bikes. If you're a family, if you're a household, maybe if you're a group of neighbours who are thinking, well, we only use our car every so often, and frankly, it's a pain when we do. Maybe a cargo bike, you can try that first. You could share it between neighbours. And the thing that we've really found is for events, and we use them for food bank deliveries. We've used them at all sorts of events for environmental education. So we've got seats in our cargo bikes so we can actually take kids out to do river safaris, all sorts of things. So there are a lot of opportunities there. And then really piloting that first mile, last mile delivery service, whether we can get a drop-off hub set up in Lewes. So there is a distinct lack of logos in this presentation, I realised. But this started with, we applied to the Energy Savings Trust, their e-cargo bike scheme, and we were successful at the second time of asking. So we got about 100 grand's worth of funding from the Energy Savings Trust. And then there's two elements to the project. One is in Lewes and one is in Newhaven, and they're slightly different in their approach. So Newhaven will be sort of more courier-based and logistics-based, whereas Lewes is as I described. And the scheme is managed by Evesco, so there are a lot of synergies with the work that Evesco do around renewable energy and energy reduction. And in Newhaven, it's run by the Sussex Community Development Association. Next slide, please. We wanted it to be from the bottom up, really. So coming from a sustainability background, really wanted this to be kind of locally grown, as it were. And so we've done a lot of we've had a lot of conversations with local partners and stakeholders, with Transition Town Lewes, with Cycle Lewes, and they've been very involved in developing the scheme. We did a lot of surveying of local traders to see what the appetite for something like this was. And so there's a lot of voluntary input into the scheme. And also we've been successful with SIL funding as well. And I think the other really important part of this, I think with all e-cargo bike schemes, is to have a hub in the middle of town. And obviously Lewes is not a big place, but we're really lucky with a local developer to get sort of some a meanwhile location. So we've got a container which is being outfitted at the moment, and that's powered by renewables. It'll be powered by renewables. So we're hoping that will become a bit of a sort of a wider hub wider than just e-cargo. So that will hopefully work with e-bike share and that sort of thing. So next slide, please. 1 minute left. 1 minute. So the bikes, in the conversation, what we found was that we wanted to have a sort of very mixed selection of bikes. So we have these Reese and Muller bikes, which are brilliant off-road. So as you can see here, they've been decorated by local kids. So we can fit 3 kids in one of those and take them up the South Downs. And they absolutely love them. And we have the bike library. So we've got quite a few local families who signed up to use them, and also linking with other projects. So we were quite successful as a Ouse Valley catchment to get this thing called the Ouse Valley Climate Action Funding. And so part of that is we have a cycle path called the E-Routes Way that's being developed, so to link communities along the Ouse Valley catchment. Final slide. Just very quickly, the challenges have been that this is the first time. If you're, doing it for the first time, it's quite hard, I think, to find case studies elsewhere that completely fit with what you want to do. And because we're trying to do a range of things, insurance has been a nightmare. We're finally there. And then just the infrastructure. And as I said, hopefully this will help to maybe address some of these infrastructure challenges, or at least to make the shortcomings sort of more visible. And then just the capacity to do it. But it's really exciting. And hopefully, if you've got any more questions or you want to see how we develop this over the next couple of years, then please get in touch.
Lovely. Thank you very much.